What's up, guys? This is Apurva. I've got another episode of Door Stories. I am ecstatic about the guest I'm introducing today. My longtime old friend, Andrew Kaldis. He's been doing some of the coolest projects I've seen in the city of Houston. And I think I'm so excited to kind of expose or bring some of his projects to light. When you drive around town, you see these buildings, you know his stamps on it, but I want him to tell his story. Andrew, welcome. So great to see you.
Thank you, Perv. It's good to see you, man. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. So we crossed paths on, when we were doing some projects out in the east end of Houston. That's where you've got a lot of action, not limited to, but a lot of action as of late. But let's take it from the top. Andrew, tell me about your background. Where did it start? Give me your journey. Just give me a few minutes.
I'll give you a little snapshot. I mean, first of all, I grew up in a real estate family. My father was a land broker.
Okay.
In the 50s. He started in 52. So it was kind of my habit change just in my blood. But my dad didn't really do redevelopment. It was strictly raw land when Houston was growing back then.
Wow.
But, after college, I tried to get a job with another company and didn't have much luck because kind of our family was in the business and I was always asked, well, why aren't you with the family business and all that? Anyway, I got kind of tired of that, so I went back to graduate school and then worked with my dad, what I call another university, the old school, and all of his clients. So following them around and being involved in transactions from, raw land standpoint, but then had a little exposure at actually office and commercial. But I really had more of a desire to do creative. I mean, I'm kind of an artist, in a way.
I'd say that.
And I always approach my projects kind of like a blank canvas, go and see what we can do with them.
Yep.
But I got the bug when I was involved in the redevelopment with Weingarten Realty on the Alabama Center on Shepherd.
Okay.
We were partners with Weingarten for about 31 years. And I started out as a kid, back in 81, managing and learning about, management by being, somewhat affiliated with Weingarten. And then a lot of people don't know, but that's the location of the first Whole Foods from Austin. It was the first location for Whole Earth Provisions. And then back, people may not remember, Bookstop was in the old,
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
But from that point, I really realized this is what I want to do. I mean, I love seeing something derelict or old or has issues. It sounds kind of crazy, but almost every project is a project that probably a lot of people will go, I don't want to deal with that headache. And they just gravitate towards me because I like figuring them out and making them work.
What do they call that? Adaptive reuse?
Yeah, the buzzwords are, it used to be adaptive reuse, repurposing.
Yeah.
I'm really consider myself a redeveloper. I reposition different buildings or come up with different concepts.
Yep.
So I started, and the areas that I started in at that point were Montrose.
Yep.
And then I still have holdings in Montrose West University, and then moved over into downtown back when the rail
had just
started.
Yeah.
You're talking about 20-some years ago, and had the opportunity to redevelop two buildings on Main Street, and then really got over here on the east side. Had been looking at it like after Minute Maid Park, I think, or was Enron Field and all that. That was back way, and East End was trying to get started, but really kind of fizzled out, right?
That's right.
And then kept kind of keeping it in the back of my mind. And once I started really realizing that the city wanted something to happen and the area to redevelop, then I took a step into it and bought my first building about 8 years ago, 2 buildings. And then I've been here for 8 years and own 5 or I think 6. I sold 5 buildings now in this particular area.
It's awesome.
And they're all different. Yeah.
I'm gonna unpack a little bit of what you said. So you mentioned Montrose, honestly, when it was in its prime.
Yeah.
Still a hot part of town, but it was early, it was just the cultural, artsy kind of part of town. Now there's a few Starbucks and things like that, where there weren't back then. It was very hip. And so and then you kind of followed the growth into downtown, and then, caught East Downtown is where we started kind of connecting. And that's when Edo was going through its kind of evolution into now arguably the hippest part of Houston.
Man, it's kind of like heights.
What kind of clues do you typically sniff out that give you, hey, this is where it's going to be at? Is there anything that you'd be comfortable sharing? Of course, don't have any secrets, but
no, it's just, it's a good question. But I think what really is a catalyst that got me here was, as I mentioned before, when I found out they had a management district established over here, I met with one of the individuals that was and still is involved with that management district and talking to them about what they envisioned here in this area. I realized, well, they established a management district, then this thing has some momentum behind it, and that, I think probably after that meeting, I said, I need to get a foothold over here. Now is really, I feel like a time to get in the market, and nobody was really, there were a few people, things were, catching on, but not like they are now. So that was the indication, at least for here, but it's always still pioneering. I mean,
right.
When I started the 2 projects on Commerce, it wasn't like there were a lot of people living here. There was just, we're still warehouses, kind of the industrial area.
Yes.
It had nothing hip about it.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, East Downtown, originally, this was right around when the Houston Dynamo Stadium was built, right?
It's another big...
That was probably the catalyst.
That's probably the real one that kind of...
The catalyst
really started,
Yeah.
After Minute Maid, the Dynamo, because it was really planted more in the east side on this side of 59.
Correct. And then you had a lot of tailwinds of development, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it was taking these unique, kind of old... really oftentimes dilapidated warehouses, and everybody had to have a vision of like, wait, this could be something. And I think you had one of the most unique visions, versus just kind of tearing down and putting up townhomes, which we saw a lot of that in this area.
Yeah, man.
But it brought the residential kind of community, which helps feed some of your properties, right? And some of your developments. So is the strategy kind of, you kind of caught the bug kind of in some of those early developments, but it was just this reuse, repurposing of the old, adding modern flair, and and we're going to show a lot of footage of your beautiful properties, but like, is that kind of the ongoing? And
I think, every project, what I try to do, and it's just what I like doing, is I like to make them all different. They have kind of a theme, a story behind them. Maybe, for example, like this one had a lot of history, with Cameron Ironworks.
Yeah.
And younger people don't know that, how instrumental they were in the energy business, oil business, patenting several oil products. One that they're most notably kind of got them on the map was the blowout preventer. We're talking back in the 20s.
Yeah.
When, they were trying to figure out how to stop blowouts in wells. So, Houston obviously is still the energy capital.
That's right.
People may agree or not agree, but, it has a long history.
That's right.
So, each building, again, not to digress, but I try to go in. I'm always, I keep a vision board. I didn't travel much, obviously, during COVID, but just try to get different ideas so that tenants or prospects that follow me have a lot to choose from.
That's right.
It's not all cookie cutter.
That's right.
And if some of them, I was telling you earlier that, I was doing small space 25 years ago, little spaces, tenants.
Yeah.
Now it's all co-working. It's a business,
Yeah.
example.
It's got an identity to it now.
I still stay with kind of that theme for entrepreneurs, or small businesses. I mean, like I said, when I go in a building, it either fits with something that maybe I'd been thinking about, or, it's on my board, and I try to say, okay, like this one,
Yeah.
Tell you more about this.
So I think
If you want to know.
I remember walking your Commerce, you had 2 Commerce buildings, and they were both like, creative loft, creative suites, right? The target tenant, tell me if I'm wrong, would be like art studio, tattoo artists, you name it, right? But that independent, they're like fashion boutiques. I remember seeing some of that stuff. But then you had professionals, right?
I mean,
a law guy or an attorney or...
the first building that I did over there was actually an old kind of hippie artist hangout back in the early 70s.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I think they even had still you can look it up. And it was like literally artists were living there with extension cord. I mean, it was just not even legal. And so that building already kind of had that art theme. And I partnered up with a partner of mine, Vicki Trimble, who really has been in the art supply business for over 50 years. And talking to her, she was doing some studios in her space. And we decided, well, look, let's do some art studios over there, because there were still artists that were, trying to stay in these areas. And we were in that market at the right time, so I could keep the pricing where it's tolerable for an artist, And I'm not talking about the artists that now you see that, maybe the
big gallery,
the hobby, and they're just kind of doing art and trying to sell it at big price. These are guys and girls that have, really are dedicating their whole life to it and trying to make it big.
That's awesome.
So it was more geared towards that kind of community. So we did the art studios, and, that turned into some studios. Then later on, it was mixed with, as you were saying, we have, photography, we have, tattoo artists. I mean, tattoo's a big industry now, body art. It's everywhere.
Absolutely.
So it's been that. And then at the same time, at the other building, I did, startup software company that were looking for kind of
a more kind of traditional co-working space.
So,
right?
That's what happened there.
I love that you kind of went against the grain from your real estate investing strategy, because at the core, this is real estate investing, right?
Yes.
But you've gone against the grain of multifamily, traditional retail, all the things that people are doing, but you found an incredible niche, right? That, you would argue, like some would be like, how do you get density? But I mean, your spaces are big buildings and you're filling these things to the brim. Like we're walking around this one and it's like, it's like a mini city. Like I was saying,
100% on this side. And then we're going to introduce now some private suites, which again, they're going to be different. I'm going to have some that are lofts, where you can use them as another work area or storage for e-commerce tenants. So it'll again give a variety.
And so how do you, I would think that maybe there's different angles to market a space like this versus just getting a broker involved and putting it up on the MLS or LoopNet or whatever. I'm assuming there's a different angle here because you're reaching a different audience.
Yes. I mean, these are projects that you can hire, one of the national firms to represent you. If it's a big enough space, yes, sure. But really a lot of it, I find that you have to do it in-house, have somebody that's working your projects and sees the vision of what you're trying to do. And everybody that works with me really understands once I decide what we're going to do, we all work together to achieve what the goal is.
Break down your team. You built quite an impressive team.
Okay, I mean, we develop, we manage. I have built-in management. I have built-in maintenance department that does all the projects.
Got it.
We sub out a little bit of the bigger surfaces, trash, but we're able to keep costs down, especially for those tenants that are paying triple nets.
Right.
Obviously, the tax and the insurance are going crazy, but, we try to keep it down where we can. I've got another young lady that is in-house for me that's doing all the leasing, and I've got a social media team. And then I have the maintenance manager. Then I have another individual that does all my financing, CFO, etc.
And I think I've seen some of your social media accounts is very impressive, and I think that's honestly the right tool to attraction for your tenant base.
Yeah, that's right. You were asking about that.
It doesn't look like a regular old real estate company.
I can't speak for everybody that's doing kind of these redevelopments, but if you're not doing social media,
Right.
or you don't have a strong social media department right now, you're missing out. Because everybody, our target market, talking about a younger generation than me. I'm one of the old timers now. That's how you're going to reach them. They want to be on their phone and they want to drive by. They want to look at it. They want everything like this.
Instant, yeah.
We still put signs out. Everybody does, for drive-bys. But I can tell you, we track everybody that contacts us so that we know where to spend our advertising dollars. That's one of the questions when we are, vetting prospects. How did you hear about it? Right. What, was it, the internet? Was it Instagram? Was it referral?
Correct.
Because if you don't know that, you don't know what's working and where to put your investment.
Absolutely.
But I would say right now, anybody wouldn't disagree that with these younger companies, younger people, they may look on LoopNet too.
Right.
Do all the standard things. But when it gets down to it, the Instagram and
probably is the best things.
We're even using TikTok.
Oh, let's see.
I didn't even have anything like that. And the only reason I have is Instagram now just to see what we're doing and how effective and, what I want to see changed or added. And I'm real involved, which is another with
the creative. I mean, that's your staple, no question.
Yeah.
And I love that you've structured your leases for most people. For a small business, just simple to understand, just a simple gross lease, all bills paid, just stuff that, the creative types, because they're not going to understand. I mean, not to take away from them, but like it's more complex when you're talking about triple net leases. And it's like, I just need I'm paying $1,000 a month and I got everything I need, right?
Right.
But I think that's a strategy.
Yeah,
right?
It's always been a strategy. And, there's other tenant or other developers now that are doing that. I mean, now with, like I said, the expenses going up,
right,
you really need to make sure if you're doing the gross lease, what is it really costing for the operation of the building, so that you can stay ahead of really knowing, well, I can cover this for the operating, this is what I'm really netting.
That's right.
But from a marketing standpoint, with these smaller tenants, they have to know, what's my budget?
Right.
And this is it. And we do, some short-term leases. Like I've got some of these smaller ones that are doing 3-year leases.
Right.
Just depends on where they are, what level in their business.
Right.
But it works. I still have, other tenants that are, standard tenant, that 5-year leases, et cetera. It just depends on the property. Like in this space that we're standing is going to be a bar. And I'm real excited about that. And, it's going to be more of a standard type operation where you have a long-term lease, et cetera.
Right. Yeah, the retail tenant.
That's just, you got to spread. And then I've got the retail tenants in front.
Right.
So, it's a little mixture.
So this building we were talking about may be one of your most successful. We'll unpack that in a second.
Okay.
But I want to go the other side of it.
Yeah.
Tell me one of the hardest, most challenging deals, maybe took an actual, some losses if you've had them in your journey, because they make us all, right?
You can't be in this business without getting,
punched in the face a few times, right? So, let's walk through one. Let's unpack it.
I mean, it's real simple. I mean, back in, I guess what you'd call the downturn in 2008 or 2000, there was a big influx of investors coming in and buying retail centers all over. And I've been involved in retail. I own retail in urban, Montrose area, but hadn't really built retail from the ground up at that time. And so for all the wrong reasons, and I'll get to that, I went and I said, okay, I gotta jump on this bandwagon with all this money coming in from out of town, people wanting to buy, retail centers. You had these ticks back then, these different mechanisms of people were promoting out, West Coast, all over. So I jumped out of my zone. I've always been in the urban core.
Yeah.
I'm not built, nor do I, it's just not my thing to be out in the suburbs.
Yep.
It's a whole different type of animal, and you have to have different horsepower, different people, know the market. People have made a lot of money, in that market. So I went out and I bought some old service station sites. I said, I'm going to build these spec retail centers. That was a big mistake. And I had 2 under construction, 1 leased up, the other one, it was just the market started changing, and that thing was, vacant longer than I wanted it to. And, I lost money. That was really one of the ones that kind of stung me going, shit, I got to be careful. Excuse my friend. I got to be careful, because this is a whole different deal.
Yeah.
And then I bought another raw land site up in Conroe, but it was before what Conroe is now. And I got caught up in being motivated by trying to build something, sell it, and getting away from what I do and what I was doing. And I think a lot of that at that time was market was changing. I got in a hurry. It did really stay in my zone, if you would.
Makes sense.
And that was where
I'm going to unpack that.
So that will bring me a raw deal, not a land deal. I won't even look at it.
So I'm going to unpack that a little bit, because your strengths have always been, just like you said, urban core, reuse, right? But you went a little bit following a gold rush. Then we were out in the burbs where we don't belong. And we were doing ground up, which is a whole nother beat.
Different deal.
You put those three things.
And they were spec.
Oh, yeah.
No tenant,
no
sign,
tenant.
nothing.
Ooh, yeah. So, I mean, again, I think one of the things that I've seen from the most successful people at the end of the day is a narrow focus and, just really with sniper.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's easy to start getting into all different, I need to do this, I need to do that. When the best of the younger people that I talk to, a lot of young people call me and, I meet with them for lunch and they're all, I want to get in the real estate, but I want to do this, I want to do that. It's a cliche, but really do what you love. But, for me, don't do something you don't know anything about.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't now, period.
Yeah.
And I don't have to. I'm at a point in my life where I'm not figuring it out anymore. I'm kind of picking and choosing what I want to do.
That's right. So let's shift it the other way. Well, let's unpack. I'm going to walk me through, for a new up-and-comer real estate investor, like you just mentioned, a deal like this is overwhelming. It's beautiful. It's massive. But walk me through kind of the stepping stones of how on earth did you get people to work with you, partner with you? Where you how you raising capital?
Yeah.
Were you, lucky right out the gate? Walk me through that journey a little bit. And then, each deal that's successful, more confidence, your partners and investors double down with you because they're like, hey, we're doing this thing. But where does it start?
It started from, my first deal was a house in Montrose, buying a house, fixing it up, renting it, and then selling it. And I had, one partner. We had no money, just a little bit of, back then. I don't even know, can't remember what we paid for, maybe 30 grand or something. But anyway, when I started early on, it was really with maybe 2 or 3 partners, friends that knew me. And they knew that I was creative. I had a knack for, kind of coming up with different ideas, but obviously they had to take a chance with me on the first deal.
Of course.
And so that deal was successful. The next deal was successful. And when I look back, there were other contemporaries that went and built Walgreens or this or that. And I just did it different. I was doing a deal at a time. I'm a big believer. Don't try to make, the first deal your big deal.
Right.
It's been a long journey. I'm the old-fashioned way. I just did it little by little. And as I did it, people gained more confidence. People saw the projects. They called me. I'd have people call and say, hey, man, I'm interested in, getting involved with you. I like what you did over here.
Yeah.
So from that point on, it grew. But I'd have to say, it wasn't something where I had a whole bunch of people going, we're going to go do a bunch of deals. It just started in these areas that were, like you said, artsy, Montrose, and continued. And like I said, now I'm at a point now where, I'll use my own money or, bring in a partner. I don't try to make it complicated.
I was going to ask, so like on these early deals, I mean, bills to pay, are you all in? Were you juggling any other income streams while you're working these, one by ones, right?
Yeah,
that's not easy.
Hey, listen, man, I didn't get married till I was 38, so I didn't have to live, I was living very, lean. And, we were doing some management, so I had some fees. But, being in this business, it's going to be feast or famine. I always say developers, always as good as the deals that he has going,
right?
From a fee standpoint. But luckily, during that time when I was starting, I didn't have the overhead, the family, the house, and all that. So, but, it wasn't easy during those times. I mean, you're right. I was lucky enough to invest in a couple of businesses along the way that offset some of the income, but, got to be careful.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with banks or debt, I've always made sure I'm never over leveraged in any deal I've done.
Perfect segue to my next question. So like these early deals, you don't have a track record. We know that like once you get going, banks will, really lean into you more. But like, our partners kind of backing us? Like walk through some of that.
I had some partners back then that, were older and more established. And that helped, obviously. I had banking relationships, just, being a broker, a family, friends, maybe a friend that was a banker.
Got it.
Just really through network.
Yep.
And I think, being honest and letting somebody, believe in you and give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking in the 80s, it was during a bad, what do you call it? Downturn.
Yeah.
The banks were upside down.
Correct. Yeah. Really tough time.
So it wasn't until after that where I really kind of started the redevelopment. But I had experience in the real estate business. I was managing third parties, some stuff and, remodeled. So it wasn't like I couldn't show them something. But I think at the end of the day, I think one of my first lenders was Frost Bank back then.
Yeah.
And man, I think about it now, there's just everything's changed. But that was still when, you could get a relationship with a banker and they were willing to take the chance.
That's right.
And now it's different. I mean, they love you as long as everything's going well.
Absolutely.
I mean, if things are starting to get shaky, they're hearing from the up, above them.
That's right.
Anyway, we won't get
very relevant today.
But it's lean. I mean, believe me, there's been some times when you wake up at night, you go, shit, how am I gonna make everything work?
Right.
So there's a lot of juggling. I mean, my early years, it was a lot more stress. I mean, not that there's no stress now, but it's limited.
Different
because
stress.
I'm not getting started like I did.
Right.
Back then, I'm kind of at a place where you just kind of decide what you want to do.
So you had your dad was kind of a guide early in your career, you mentioned. What other mentors have there been along the way? And,
Well, obviously my dad, I think was a mentor in that, he was an immigrant from Greece, came over with nothing, a typical American dream from, newsstand owner, and to building a successful, small brokerage company, more of a, it was like a Maverick, one-man shop that developed relationships and trust with a lot of the oil icons when Houston was started, and he gained trust and little by little started buying and selling large tracts, Galleria, out west. I mean, wherever Houston grew from, when Galleria was a field, country. So I would say that, and plus, because he built and did his own thing, I kind of always felt like I'd probably be better off, having my own deal going. than working for some big company. Now, looking back, if somebody was asking me, I think because of the market, the way real estate has changed, it's a big arena now. And I would say to somebody, I think that they need to go and maybe get some experience in a bigger firm.
Yeah.
The way it is now, and meet people, make connections. That's one thing when you do it like I did, you're out on the street. I mean, and, you're trying to meet people, it's just harder than being, exposed in some big company and, you just get a pool of people that you can connect with.
That's right. And all in one kind of industry.
And now it's different. I mean, all these big companies have merged and, it's very national. I mean, there's still
some independents out there.
Yeah, and younger guys now that do what I do. I mean, like I said, there's creative guys out there that, kind of like what we do. So I don't know where they got their start or anything, but my point is,
you're inspiring that next generation.
That's what I always say when these, younger people call me or want to talk to me. I kind of encourage that. I mean, they're all ready to go, man, I want to do this. I want to redo something like this. I mean, I didn't redo something like this, when I was starting.
Right.
I mean, I didn't do that. I didn't learn like that. And
let's unpack this deal. I mean, Ironworks, we're sitting in one of your, one of the biggest, close to?
Well, it's as big as the two buildings I did downtown in 2000. But they were different. I mean, they were both historic. They were both done with both federal. Well, back then you only were able to get federal tax credits.
Okay.
And now, as time has gone by, you can get state and federal credits that enable you to maybe do a project like this to where it can make sense. And that was the incentive. Now, they've given developers, because they know these deals can get expensive.
Right.
Especially now, with when
everything.
You had the, materials going up. You had, couldn't get material.
Yeah.
So it's all changes. And so
walk me through. So this is the old Ironworks industrial building.
Mm-hmm.
You saw this thing, in its kind of raw state. You had a vision to turn this thing. I mean, when we pan this video of this thing, it's like a little city in here. It's incredible. Walk me through the journey.
Oh, okay. I mean, since I was here downtown, I knew, the area.
Yep.
And I've always just gravitated. I've seen when you look at this building. I grew up here in Houston, so I remember the Maxwell's coffee, but I also knew the story behind the buildings. Cameron Ironworks was started by two individuals that were known for that company. It was Jim Abercrombie and Harry Cameron. Harry Cameron at the machine shop here. We had a small machine shop. I would say, obviously, they're not living now, but he, from research I did, he was more like a mechanical guy. And I guess, Jim Abercrombie was more of kind of the finance. But knowing the history and doing some other historic projects that had maybe they had a story.
Right.
Not like this, it was just more, there was more history associated with it. And so I found out that the coffee plant closed, and I immediately contacted the owners on a Saturday and bought the building. It was, not even on the market.
That's awesome.
And so then I knew, well, now what do I do? 60,000 feet, very industrial, but, was all built 35 and 40s.
Yep.
So knew about the historic credits available and had my vision on the containers, didn't know exactly where I was going to do that. I mean, obviously, these containers, everything started with the residential.
Right.
Still does. I mean, that, everybody redo and have a container home, all that. Now it's a tiny home.
Right.
Then you had, I guess, bars using them for beer gardens. Then you had even a bar in Austin, the container bar.
Yep.
All of this, now you have container,
complex,
all kind of complexes. But I really was studying let's do something inside. And, you know, we're always behind Europe or Far East, everything, every place that I can think of that's real dense.
Yep.
They got to come up with ways to try to, you know, make things work. And so because of the criteria of the credits and how I had to do this building, I said this will fit with the containers because it's industrial. It doesn't block any of the architecture, and that's real big.
Right.
You don't really, not changing much of the fabric. This is, I don't know if it's the only one, but it was probably one of the only industrial tax credit deals that the state and federal Park Service has done. But, you know, they loved the idea. I figured out that we were going to do it in an indoor situation. Climate controlled, just like you said, it's like a little town in here. I think of it as like an eclectic mall, you know, that has, you know, creatives, it has office. But, you know, it really, I had the vision, but like I said, sometimes I didn't get to mention this. You can have the idea of what I want to do, and then all of a sudden, you know, I come in here at night by myself and look at it and go, man, this is great. Oh, well, let's change this. I mean, I'm notorious for changing my mind. I mean, anybody that worked close to me could tell you that. That's just part of my personality.
Creative mind, no doubt.
That's how
it always evolved.
The building, it evolved, and now we did this, and we're going to add something new over at the other side. And then I have a new project, as I was saying, that's going to start. It's an expansion of Ironworks.
It's awesome.
It'll be different. The building itself is different.
So how, like, give me some timelines. So you bought the building, you know, those tax credits, the historical tax credits, that takes a lot of effort.
Yeah,
you got the homework.
And we had COVID.
Then you had,
you know, when I bought it, it took, we were doing some work, but it'll take, in a project like this, it'll take a year for you to get a final approval on what you want to do.
Wow.
That's why a lot of people don't go through that.
Just the holding costs alone.
And exactly. So, you know, you have that cost associated if you are getting debt, or unless, like this, we think we bought the building, we paid cash. But anyway, it's all about, you know, obviously the length of time, the interest. But we bought it, took a year. Then I got COVID hit for everybody. And I'm really going up. Now what? But I was lucky enough to pre-lease a third of the first phase, and that, you know, obviously helped because it took, you know, by the time that tenant moved in, COVID was, you know, kind of backing off some of the more stringent.
About a year of creating.
I had projects that, you know, were 100%, and a retail center that I did out down in the Heights, and they were labeling, you know, all the tenants, the ones that were, you know, couldn't stay open. I mean, I went from 100% to almost 0% because those tenants couldn't sustain, or they weren't even allowed because they were.
They were like forced to shut down.
But anyway, so we had some challenges. I mean, normally, you know, I would have been further ahead.
Right.
But, you know, the other piece to this particular area and this project is, you know, the introduction of the opportunity zones.
Yeah.
And that was another opportunity to invest or get investors that wanted to put money to, you know, postpone their capital gain.
Is this an OZ building?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Incredible.
So with that, coupled with the tax credits, because, you know, the tax credit flow over a 5-year period. So this is a long-term project. This is something that you're fixing up and then you're going to go flip.
Get out of
it.
I
mean, I'm not that type anyway. I mean, everything obviously eventually can be for sale, but we pretty much...
You don't go into it with that intention.
And not really...
So where are we at?
Main focus.
Where are we at today? So 60,000 square feet.
We have 60,000.
How much...
This is 100% on this side. Okay. And then...
How many units does this represent? Or is it kind of even modeled that way?
You've got, I think I got like 17 containers.
Okay.
But the way this kind of is divided is I have 10,000 that is, just your office.
Yep.
Then you have what I call the boardwalk, which is the containers.
Yeah. The alley of containers on all sides.
And then you have this side, which is more small offices that have been, some office, some other users. I got a print shop. I've got a, design firm. We've got tattoo artists.
Yeah.
So that's finished. And as I said, we'll do the bar. But one thing I'm doing in the other section now that I'm starting, there's going to be more of a kind of a quasi co-working. It's not going to relate, but it's going to be real private, very cool little suites for small businesses, or they can expand into 2 or 3 suites.
Right.
But you'll enter
the modular
historical entry in the front, the red brick.
Yeah.
And it'll have just a kind of a different feel, presence. But you still access all the amenities, to the coffee, the sandwich, to the smoothie, to the bar.
I love it.
And true
mixed use.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a true mixed use and in kind of an urban way,
Absolutely. So let's kind of round this out. I mean, I'm a first-time investor. You said you got many young bloods coming and knocking on your door. And, just to have somebody that's willing to take the time is, an asset in a community like this. But give me some guidance. What would you say to somebody that wants to follow on a similar journey, a unique path, but still real estate?
I mean, I think that the first thing that comes to mind for me, if you really want to get into redevelopment, if I was starting over, I'd go and get a construction job.
That's great.
See, I did some construction. I mean, I was like punching out apartments, so I got a little bit of that experience because you learn it, man, from Sweden, from, being around the construction part.
Right.
Because to me, that's valuable. I don't know about some of these other developers that are redeveloping, if they even been around a construction site. Maybe they have somebody, obviously, that has been. But I mean, I started out, in construction. So I know sometimes it's a curse because when contractors or subcontractors are talking to me about numbers, I automatically know the numbers.
Right.
Or if I get a contractor, he's not coming to me, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, is this really what it's going to cost? I know what it's going to cost.
Right. That's right.
In some respects. So I would say, and I've told some younger guys that said, hey, it's not glamorous, but, go with one of the triple Stevens, go to some of the bigger, try to be a superintendent, or learn under a superintendent.
That makes sense.
So that's that. And that's not the only way, but that's one way. Then you really start learning how that works. And then, there's some boutique type firms that now have come up that I would encourage maybe, trying to get with.
Like a development shop,
shop,
okay.
That maybe it's a smaller one where you really have you get some hands-on.
Yeah, get to wear a few hats throughout the place, yeah.
If you don't get that, then, again, there's always the bigger firms.
Right.
That, you just try to learn that.
Right.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
As opposed to just, rent a space unless you've got money behind you day one. And
I love your
so I don't know if that's answering.
No, it does.
It does. To start, I'm a big believer, man. You got to crawl before you walk.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight for me. I mean, I worked, believe me, my early days, I worked all the time and, scrapped it out, figured it out. I didn't have the big company to go to. I wasn't a corporate guy.
Right.
So I went on that path, which, again, I don't look back. I love what I do.
I mean, I'll take a couple things out of there. One, I love the start with construction, because most of the advice I always get, which is still good advice, is like seek out a mentor that's done what you've been doing and that kind of stuff, or what you want to do. But in your case, like, if you really think about what you're doing, the construction skills is probably one of the most critical, because you're looking at something that isn't intended at all for what you end up using it for.
It's a lot different. Like,
Yeah.
you start from scratch, you got a plan of a new build. It's all the plans are there. This, you better know, you know, if you're going to look at a wall, yeah, you can get the engineer and a structural guy, but you need to know what the bones are to this place.
Right.
You know, to different.
Right.
And again, not every building, you know, I go into it, say, hey, it's got good bones or it's safe.
Right.
Yeah, it could be, you know, salvage.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's, hey, man, I can't do this.
Tear it down.
Better off tearing it down.
Right.
But I give it a hard look because that's what I do anyway. You know, there's been buildings that I brought a couple of my investors in the past that said, Andrew, I don't know what the hell you're thinking here, but I've seen what you're doing, so don't bother me, you know, just do your thing. But
Well, I love that angle.
another thing that I think is important, which talking about younger people, you know, it seems like nowadays, you know, there's a lot of motivational type of, you know, people out there.
Right.
I think younger people are looking, especially some people that may not have been exposed. And I'm a big believer on if you're feeling lost and you're not really kind of need to get focused, is, you know, really finding a life coach. I mean, I have a life coach. I've had one for years.
Oh, it's great.
And they're more, I know that, you know, they call them life coaches. I mean, yes, but it's business and personal life. It's all integrated.
Absolutely.
So you got to be balanced or try to stay balanced.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's been a real gift for me to be able to understand that having somebody outside to be able to kind of analyze how you function and what you're doing, because like anybody, it's easier for somebody to see what you're up to and how you function than yourself. So
That's right. Yeah, that's very true.
it's all about, you know, hopefully each day and
Yeah, you got your
learn, and the older you get. But
own bias in your
touch
head.
on that, because that's another thing that I think's real helpful is that, you know, for younger people, you know.
I love that.
And, you know, and there's plenty of them, or you can get referrals. I mean, even here, my life coach is going to speak to all the small businesses.
Oh, that's awesome.
Here and do just a small question and answer, but he's actually going to speak about entrepreneurship and, you know, goals and really what you're trying to do in your life.
Right.
Because then, you know, your life and then what you want to do professionally. But that's, to me, that's a good, I mean, I wanted to mention that.
I love that.
It's been real helpful for me, and I consider him like a board of directors.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all that you need, right?
So that,
I love it. Dude, Andrew, this has been great. Thank you for taking the time to catch up with me.
Hey, man.
It's been too long. We'll let it be too long again.
good to see you.
I'm excited to put this out. I think a lot of people are going to get a ton of value from it. I appreciate you taking the time and giving us, you know, we're getting a lot of visibility of this beautiful building and your future projects that are coming.
Yeah, when you come back,
We
we'll have
absolutely
a
will.
drink here.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm on for that. Well, thank you, and
Thanks a lot.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Cheers.
Thank